The Boston Marathon is an annual marathon hosted by several cities in Greater Boston and eastern Massachusetts, United States. It is always held on Patriots' Day, the third Monday of April. Begun in 1897, inspired by the success of the first modern-day marathon competition in the 1896 Summer Olympics, the Boston Marathon is the world's oldest annual marathon and ranks as one of the world's best-known road racing events. It is one of 6 world marathon majors, and is one of 4 major events held in the United States through the years of both World Wars. Since 1897, the Boston Athletic Association has managed this event. Amateur and professional runners from all over the world compete in the Boston Marathon each year, braving the hilly Massachusetts terrain and varying weather to take part in the race. The event attracts 500,000 spectators each year, making it New England's most widely viewed sporting event. Though starting with 18 participants in 1897, the event now attracts an average of about 30,000 registered participants each year, with 30,251 people entering in 2015. The Centennial Boston Marathon in 1996 established a record as the world's largest marathon with 38,708 entrants, 36,748 starters, and 35,868 finishers. History. The Boston Marathon was first run in April 1897, inspired by the revival of the marathon for the 1896 Summer Olympics in Athens. It is the oldest continuously running marathon, and the second longest continuously running foot race in North America, having debuted 5 months after the Buffalo Turkey Trot. On April 19, 1897, 10 years after the establishment of the BAA, the association held the 24.5 miles marathon to conclude its athletic competition, the BAA Games. The inaugural winner was John J. McDermott, who ran the 24.5-mile course in 2:55 and 10 seconds, leading a field of 15. The event was scheduled for the recently established holiday of Patriots' Day, with the race linking the Athenian and American struggles for liberty. The race, which became known as the Boston Marathon, has been held every year since then, making it the world's oldest annual marathon. In 1924, the starting line was moved from Metcalfe's Mill in Ashland to Hopkinton Green and the course was lengthened to 26 miles 385 yards to conform to the standard set by the 1908 Summer Olympics and codified by the IAAF in 1921. The Boston Marathon was originally a local event, but its fame and status have attracted runners from all over the world. For most of its history, the Boston Marathon was a free event, and the only prize awarded for winning the race was a wreath woven from olive branches. However, corporate-sponsored cash prizes began to be awarded in the 1980s, when professional athletes began to refuse to run the race without cash awards. The first cash prize for winning the marathon was awarded in 1986. Walter A. Brown was the president of the Boston Athletic Association from 1941 to 1964. In 1951, during the height of the Korean War, Brown denied Koreans entry into the Boston Marathon. He stated, "While American soldiers are fighting and dying in Korea, every Korean should be fighting to protect his country instead of training for marathons. As long as the war continues there, we positively will not accept Korean entries for our race on April 19. Women were not allowed to enter the Boston Marathon officially until 1972. Roberta Bobby Gibb is recognized by the race organizers as the first woman to run the entire Boston Marathon. In 1967, Catherine Switzer, who had registered as KV Switzer, was the first woman to run and finish with the race number. She finished despite a famous incident in which race official Jock Semple tried to rip off her numbers and eject her from the race. In 1996 the BAA retroactively recognized as champions the unofficial women's leaders of 1966 through 1971. In 2015, about 46% of the entrants were female. Rosie Ruiz Scandal came to the Boston Marathon in 1980 when amateur runner Rosie Ruiz come from out of nowhere to win the women's race. Marathon officials became suspicious when it was discovered Ruiz did not appear in race videotapes until near the end of the race. A subsequent investigation concluded that Ruiz had skipped most of the race and blended into the crowd about 1 mile from the finish line, where she then ran to her apparent victory. Ruiz was officially disqualified, and the winner was proclaimed to be Canadian Jacqueline Guerreau. Deaths. In 1996, a 62-year-old Swedish man died of a heart attack during the 100th running. In 2002, Cynthia Lucero, 28, died of hyponatremia. 2011 Boston Marathon. On Monday, April 18, 2011, Jeffrey Mutai of Kenya won the Boston Marathon in a time of 2:03 and 2 seconds. Although this was the fastest marathon ever run at the time, the International Association of Athletics Federations noted that the performance was not eligible for world record status given that the course does not satisfy rules regarding elevation drop and start-finish separation. The Associated Press reported that Mutai had the support of other runners who described the IAAF's rules as flawed. According to the Boston Herald, race director Dave McGillivray said he was sending paperwork to the IAAF in an attempt to have Mutai's mark ratified as a world record. Although this was not successful, the AP indicated that the attempt to have the mark certified as a world record would force the governing bodies to reject an unprecedented performance on the world's most prestigious marathon course. 2013 bombings. During the 2013 Boston Marathon, on April 15, 2013 at 2:49 p.m. EDT, nearly 3 hours after the winners crossed the finish line, 2 explosions occurred about 200 yards apart on Boylston Street, in approximately the last 225 yards of the course. The race was halted, preventing many from finishing. 3 spectators were killed and an estimated 264 were injured. Entrants who completed at least half the course and did not finish due to the bombings were given automatic entry in 2014. 2014 drug case. Kenya runner Rita Jeptu was the apparent female winner of the race. She is facing a likely disqualification after the World Anti-Doping Agency announced she tested positive for a banned substance. Hearings were held in January 2015. Race. Qualifying. The Boston Marathon is open to runners 18 or older from any nation, but they must meet certain qualifying standards. To qualify, a runner must first complete a standard marathon course certified by a national governing body affiliated with the International Association of Athletics Federations within a certain period of time before the date of the desired Boston Marathon. In the 1980s and 1990s, membership in USA Track and Field was required of all runners, but this requirement has been eliminated. Qualifying standards for the 2013 race were tightened on February 15, 2011, by 5 minutes in each age-gender group for marathons run after September 23, 2011. Prospective runners in the age range of 18 to 34 must run a time of no more than 3:05 if male, or 3:35 if female. The qualifying time is adjusted upward as age increases. In addition, the 59-second grace period on qualifying times has been completely eliminated. For example, a 40 to 44-year-old male will no longer qualify with a time of 3:15 and 1 second. For many marathoners, to qualify for Boston is a goal and achievement in itself. An exception to the qualification times is for runners who receive entries from partners. About 1/5 of the marathon spots are reserved each year for charities, sponsors, vendors, licensees, consultants, municipal officials, local running clubs, and marketers. In 2010, about 5,470 additional runners received entries through partners, including 2,515 charity runners. The marathon currently allocates spots to 24 charities who in turn are expected to raise more than $10 million a year. On October 18, 2010, the 20,000 spots reserved for qualifiers were filled in a record-setting 8 hours and 3 minutes. The speed of registration prompted the BAA to change its qualifying standards for the 2013 marathon onward. In addition to lowering qualifying times, the change includes a rolling application process, which gives faster runners priority. Organizers decided not to significantly adjust the number of non-qualifiers. Race day. the race has traditionally been held on Patriots' Day, a state holiday in Massachusetts, and until 1969 that was every April 19, whichever day of the week that fell on. Starting in 1969, the holiday was observed on the third Monday in April, and so the marathon date was correspondingly fixed to that Monday, often referred to by local residents as Marathon Monday. Starting times through 2005, the race began at noon, at the official starting point in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. Starting in 2006, the race used a staggered wave start, where top-seeded runners and a first batch of up to 10,000 runners started at noon, with a second group starting at 12:30. Next year the starting times for the race were moved up, allowing runners to take advantage of cooler temperatures and enabling the roads to be reopened earlier. The marathon later added a third wave to help further stagger the runners and reduce congestion. Since 2014, the starting times are 8:50 a.m. mobility impaired, 9:17 a.m. wheelchair division, 9:22 a.m. handcycle participants, 9:32 a.m. elite women, 10 a.m. elite men and wave 1, 10:25 a.m. wave 2, 11 a.m. wave 3, 11:25 a.m. wave 4. Course equals. The course runs through 26 miles 385 yards of winding roads, following Route 135, Route 16, Route 30 and city streets into the center of Boston, where the official finish line is located at Copley Square, alongside the Boston Public Library. The race runs through 8 Massachusetts cities and towns: Hopkinton, Ashland, Framingham, Natick, Wellesley, Newton, Brookline, and Boston. The Boston Marathon is considered to be one of the more difficult marathon courses because of the Newton Hills, which culminate in Heartbreak Hill near Boston College. While the 3 hills on Commonwealth Avenue are better known, a preceding hill on Washington Street, climbing from the Charles River crossing at 16 miles, is regarded by Dave McGillivray, the long-term race director, as the course unregistered trademark's most difficult challenge. This hill, which follows a 150-foot drop in a 1 or 2 mile stretch, forces many lesser-trained runners to a walking pace. Heartbreak Hill is an ascent over 0.4 mile between the 20 and 21 mile marks, near Boston College. It is the last of 4 Newton Hills, which begin at the 16-mile mark and challenge contestants with late climbs after the course's general downhill trend to that point. Though Heartbreak Hill itself rises only 88 feet vertically, it comes in the portion of a marathon distance where muscle glycogen stores are most likely to be depleted, a phenomenon referred to by marathoners as hitting the wall. It was on this hill that, in 1936, defending champion Johnny Kelly overtook Ellison Tarzan Brown, giving him a consolatory pat on the shoulder as he passed. This gesture renewed the competitive drive in Brown, who rallied, pulled ahead of Kelly, and went on to win thereby, it was said, breaking Kelly's heart. Records equals. Because the course drops 459 feet from start to finish and the start is quite far west of the finish, allowing a helpful tailwind, the Boston Marathon does not satisfy 2 of the criteria necessary for the ratification of world or American records. On April 18, 2011, Jeffrey Mutai of Kenya ran the fastest marathon ever in a time of 2:03 and 2 seconds at the 2011 Boston Marathon. Rita Jeptoo, also from Kenya, set the women's course record with a 2:18 and 57 seconds performance on April 21, 2014. Other course records include, men unregistered trademark S Masters, John Campbell, 2:11 and 4 seconds, women unregistered trademark S Masters, Mary Hannah, 2:27 and 58 seconds, men unregistered trademark S Push Rim Wheelchair, Joshua Cassidy, 1:18 and 25 seconds, women unregistered trademark S Push Rim Wheelchair, Jean Driscoll, 1:34 and 22 seconds. On only 4 occasions have world record times for marathon running been set in Boston. In 1947, the men's record time set was 2:25 and 39 seconds, by Soo-Yeon Bok of South Korea. In 1975, a women's world record of 2:42 and 24 seconds was set by Leanne Winter of West Germany, and in 1983, Joan Benoit Samuelson of the United States ran a women's world record time of 2:22 and 43 seconds. In 2012, Joshua Cassidy of Canada set a men's wheelchair marathon world record time of 1:18 and 25 seconds. The race's organizers keep a standard time clock for all entries, though official timekeeping ceases after the 6-hour mark. The BAA. The Boston Athletic Association is a non-profit, organized sports association that organizes the Boston Marathon and other events. Divisions. In 1975, the Boston Marathon became the first major marathon to include a wheelchair division competition. Bob Hall wrote race director Will Cloney to ask if he could compete in the race in his wheelchair. Cloney wrote back that he could not give Hall a race number, but would recognize Hall as an official finisher if he completed the race in under 3 hours and 30 minutes. Hall finished in 2 hours and 58 minutes, paving the way for the wheelchair division. In addition to the push-rim wheelchair division, the Boston Marathon also hosts a blind visually impaired division and a mobility impaired program. Similar to the running divisions, a set of qualifying times has been developed for these divisions to motivate aspiring athletes and ensure competitive excellence. In 1986, the introduction of prize money at the Boston Marathon gave the push-rim wheelchair division the richest prize purse in the sport. More than 1,000 people with disabilities and impairments have participated in the wheelchair division, while the other divisions have gained popularity each year. In 2013, 40 blind runners participated. Memorial. The Boston Marathon Memorial in Copley Square, not far from the finish line, was installed to mark the 100th running of the race. A circle of granite blocks set in the ground surrounds a central medallion that traces the race course and other segments that show an elevation map of the course and the names of the winners. Notable features. Spectators with approximately 500,000 spectators. The Boston Marathon is New England's most widely viewed sporting event. About 1,000 media members from more than 100 outlets received media credentials in 2011. For the entire distance of the race, thousands line the sides of the course to cheer the runners on, encourage them, and provide free water and snacks to the runners. Scream Tunnel. At Wellesley College, a women's college, it is traditional for the students to cheer on the runners in what is referred to as the Scream Tunnel. For about a quarter of a mile, the students line the course, scream, and offer kisses. The Scream Tunnel is so loud runners claim it can be heard from a mile away. The tunnel is roughly half a mile prior to the halfway mark of the course. Boston Red Sox. Every year, the Boston Red Sox play a home game at Fenway Park, starting at 11:05 a.m. When the game ends, the crowd empties into Kenmore Square to cheer as the runners enter the final mile. This tradition started in 1903. In the 1940s, the Red Sox from the American League and the Boston Braves from the National League alternated yearly as to which would play the morning game. In 2007, the game between the Red Sox and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim was delayed until 12:18 p.m. due to heavy rain. The marathon, which had previously been run in a wide variety of weather conditions, was not delayed. Dick and Rick Hoyt. One of the most recognized duos each year at the Boston Marathon is Dick and Rick Hoyt. Dick is the father of Rick, who has cerebral palsy. While doctors said he would never have a normal life and thought that institutionalizing Rick was the best option, Dick and his wife disagreed and raised him as an ordinary child. Eventually a computer device was developed that helped Rick communicate with his family, and they learned that one of his biggest passions was sports. Team Hoyt started competing in charity runs, with Dick pushing Rick in a wheelchair. Dick and Rick have competed in 66 marathons and 229 triathlons. Their top marathon finish was 2:40 and 47 seconds. The team completed their 30th Boston Marathon in 2012. When Dick was 72 and Rick was 50. They had intended the 2013 marathon to be their final one, but due to the Boston Marathon bombings were stopped a mile short of completing their run, and decided to run one more marathon the following year. They completed the 2014 marathon on April 21, 2014, having previously announced that it would be their last. In tribute to his connection with the race, Dick Hoyt was named the Grand Marshal of the 2015 marathon. Bandits Unlike many other races, the Boston Marathon tolerates bandits, or runners who do not register and pay an entry fee. They are held back until after all the registered runners have left the starting line, and then are released in an unofficial fourth wave. They are also not pulled off the course and are allowed to cross the finish line. For decades, these unofficial runners were treated like local folk heroes, celebrated for their endurance and spunk for entering a contest with the world's most accomplished athletes. Boston Marathon race director Dave McGillivray was once a teenage bandit. Given the increased field that was expected for the 2014 marathon, however, organizers planned more than ever to discourage bandits from running. As of September 2015, the BAA website states, Can I run in the Boston Marathon as an unofficial or bandit runner? A. No, please do not run if you have not been officially entered in the race. Race amenities along the course and at the finish, such as fluids, medical care, and traffic safety, are provided based on the number of expected official entrants. Any addition to this by way of unofficial participants, adversely affects our ability to ensure a safe race for everyone. Costumes A number of people choose to run the course in a variety of costumes each year. During the 100th running in 1996, one runner wore a scale model of the Old North Church steeple on his back. Old North Church is where the signal was lit that set Paul Revere off on his midnight ride, which is commemorated each year on the same day as the marathon. During the 2014 marathon, runners and spectators were discouraged from wearing O costumes covering the face or any non-form-fitting, bulky outfits extending beyond the perimeter of the body, for security reasons following the 2013 bombings. However, state authorities and the Boston Athletic Association did not outright ban such costumes. See also, List of marathon races, The Sports Museum, 1970 Boston Marathon, 2013 Boston Marathon, 2014 Boston Marathon, 2015 Boston Marathon. References. Further reading, History of the Boston Marathon, The First Century of the World's Premier Running Event, by Tom Daderian, Human Kinetics Publishers, 1996, 634 pages, ISBN 0-88011-479-7. External links. General reference Official website of the Boston Marathon, History of the Boston Marathon at marathonguide.com, Boston Marathon, What to Expect on Race Day, Boston Marathon Course Pace Band, Weather History, Course Map and Elevation, Course Elevation, the 1918 Boston Marathon Military Relay. Photo and video stories Boston Marathon Photos 2005, Story of the 2007 Boston Marathon, Videos from 2007 Boston Marathon, Boston Marathon Photos 2008, 2008 Men's Boston Marathon Highlights, 2008 Women's Boston Marathon Highlights, 2008 Wheelchair Boston Marathon Highlights, Boston Marathon Course Photos, Runner's View from Start to Finish, Boston Marathon 2009 Photos from Italian Runners Web Magazine.